Welcome everybody to the creative nonfiction community. I am Allison Lane, your host, here with Candace Cahill and Mona Mijas, who are moderators in our community. Today we're talking about titles, how to craft a title for your book that does not put people to sleep and that really entices the reader to know what they're going to get when they buy your book, or when they pick up your book, or when you give them your book, even when they're a friend on the street. So as a professional book editor and author strategy coach, I can tell you that I change a lot of titles. More than not, I encourage authors to change their title to fit what's happening in the marketplace, and to, as a result of maybe like a pivot in what's selling, and actually to realize that, you know, don't judge a book by its cover is maybe not relevant here, because we do judge books by their covers, and covers sell books. So if I can just share it, that a lot of people want their book to be about the process, but not the result. Or they want they decide on a book title before the book's actually written, because something has inspired them completely. But your inspiration is not the reason why we're going to read your book. We want you to inspire us, not to hear what inspired you. So, the fields of in Montana, like that can't be that's not, we didn't have that experience, and so that's not a title for your book. There are cliches that keep showing up in drafts, and a lot of people ask this, and they say, my book is about, overcoming grief, and it's just not enough. It's just not enough. If your book is about love and loss, I will pluck out my eyelashes, because your book about love and loss is not specific enough. It doesn't tell me what happens in it, who's in it. It could be a novel, it could be a thriller, it could be a memoir. So we want to encourage people to have more ownership about the title sells the book. The cover sells the book, and everyone being their best marketer means that you get to select this title, but it may change. And the truth is, if you're going through traditional publishing, your book title will almost certainly change based on, the experts and the algorithms and what they realize, it is fitting a formula for success. So I have some examples. You can't see it yet, but I have probably 50 books sitting in front of me, and I will be holding up some great examples of formulas that you can look at that can inspire you to title your book with something that is going to flag for people what they're going to get, or what they can look forward to, or what the risk is, because people want to be shocked and cajoled and provoked into reading your book. And they also want to know, what do they get at the end? So the purpose of our discussion today is to know that labels matter. And if your title is the key to pitching your book, then the log line also, which is, my book titled X is about this, 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 and this. The log line can also invite people in. So you have your title. Sometimes you have a subtitle, which is helpful, especially in nonfiction. And then you have a log line, but that title can really pop. And then we'll talk about the trends, the secrets, and some power plays that you can use to develop your title. So first and foremost, things to avoid. Avoid cliche. My life, a long road to healing. Like, Oh, snore. Everyone heals. Everyone has trauma. Getting through trauma. Thank you very much. What kind of trauma? Were you, did you have a childhood full of hunger, or were you kidnapped at gunpoint? Like these are both traumatic. Be specific. Specificity counts. In fact, right now I'm going to share a link in the chat to some words that can really get in the way of you being specific. So here is a free cheat sheet, clobber your crutches. These are words that you can strike from your manuscript or your title that are just, they're general and you can do better. Love, loss, grief, there are lots of types of love. Are we talking about passion? Or are we talking about tenderness? Are we talking about lust? Are we talking about, friendship? You can be specific and still talk about love. The other thing is, if the book is all about you, then the book might be actually about a universal truth, but the plot might be about your journey through the Serengeti, or how you became a master quilter or mistress quilter. God, I hate gendered language. But if it's all about you, I don't want to read all about you. I want to read about me through your experience. Even if you're writing self-help or a business book nowadays, there's a lot of storytelling and personal stories that come through in those books. But dang, if Lori Gottlieb, who wrote Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, which is about her, it's not memoir, but it is, boy, it's a bestseller. It's about her being a therapist, her therapist, and getting through it all, or something. I can't remember the subtitle, but boy, if she had just written a book that said, my life as a therapist, I would have been like, no, thanks. But maybe you should talk to someone. I'm interested. Maybe I should talk to someone. In fact, now I am talking to someone. Really, this group is my therapy. But that could have been a totally different book journey for that book had it been titled differently. Another thing to avoid are super duper long proper names. This is a trend from a couple years ago, and so you'll see books coming out now with proper names, like Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. This is a fiction, but there were a lot of that. Nick and Nora's journey, Nick and Nora's ultimate playlist, like that's great. Like that's from yesteryear, but we're not seeing new book deals today that have super duper long names. Allison Lane's journey with Candace into, the writing world. Now we skip to the what's in it for everybody else. So avoid falling in love with your title, because it will change. And it should change. And so what I suggest that people do is look at a couple things. One is that, you can surprise people and provoke them at the same time. So this is the speed round of, I'm going to hold up a bunch of books that surprise the hell out of me. Word Slut. This is a freaking awesome book. A Feminist Guide to Taking Back the English Language by Amanda Montell. Bestseller by a linguist. And boy, this book, she coined this phrase. Good for her. Just like, book porn. I love some book porn. So Wordslet, it's funny, it's provocative, and it tells you what it's going to be about because the subtitle really explains what you get, right? But it's not a how-to, it's a guide. Okay, I'm just going to put these. Here we go. 7 drafts. 7 drafts it tells you what it is, but it's also a little instructive, right? It says self-edit like a pro from blank page to book, but it tells you right up front, instructional, you're going to end up with 7 drafts. Thank you, Allison K. Williams. Super helpful, right? Let's see, let me look at all the other ones that have shock value because they are many. Okay, here's another one. The Woman Who Stole Vermeer. Like already I was like, oh my God, who could it be? I don't even know. This is a book about an infamous art thief, the only woman infamous art thief, Rose Dugdale, but it's not the life of Rose Dugdale, which it could have been. It's the woman who stole Vermeer. Good for her. What does she do with it? Nothing. It ended up going back to the museum, which most art actually does. Let's look at some others that have funny shock value. One's on the bottom. Here's one by Jenny True. You Look Tired. An excruciatingly honest guide to new parenthood. So what Jenny did, and she's spoken in this group, thank you, Jenny, if you're watching, is she took something that people say to new parents and she made it the title because it's funny and also it's awful. Instead of saying, you know, your guide to being a parent in the new millennia, like, no, she's just saying it like it is. Good for her. And it's very voicey. It meets with what she's laying down. If you're picking that up, this has become a must-have for baby registries, which is great, and part of her marketing roadmap. Okay. Okay, so surprise, funny, provoke, shocking for sure. Also, I don't have a copy, I gave it away, but Swing, a memoir of doing it all by Ashley Renard, self-published, but boy, is it a hit. Swing, you might not have known what it is, a memoir of doing it all. And then there's an image of her holding her book across her breasts, and she's unclothed. And so it sort of says, like, did she do it all? And you'll have to read and find out. Also, moving ahead, a thematic soundbite from the book. Okay, so one of my favorites is this one, Ruth Sepetus, Salt to the Sea. Okay, this, if you look for a soundbite from the book and you go really deep into the book, into this book, this title is buried in a paragraph in the second third of the book, not even at the end of a paragraph, but it sums up thematically the entire book. So it's not, it doesn't have a subtitle. It doesn't have a promise, but it's a historical fiction about, children and young adults escaping war and on a boat that eventually is sunk. So I'm not giving anything away. It is so worth reading. It is incredible. And I loved it, but I think that like going into your book and having people pull out 5 or 6 really momentous phrases that can end up pulling people in. Who else did this is Lisa Selye, who might be joining soon. she said she was going to show up. So she wrote Narrow Girls on a profound blue stage. And her book just came out, just launched Monday. So I couldn't even buy it and get it here for today because the links weren't working. But her book has had 3 different titles. And she wrote a piece on Medium, I think she shared in the community earlier this week. And I just wanted to share her point of view since she's not on yet. And that was that at first her memoir is about having been a young ballerina and being swept away in a love affair with the seamstress for the ballet theater company. And so the book was called The Seamstress because of this woman. And then she thought, well, it's about so much more than that. It's really not about her, but about this sort of cast of characters and this predatory environment and falling in love and coming of age. And then she pulled a soundbite out of the book, which was All Was in August. And she was really taken with that. And then she found that someone else had written a book called All Was in August. And even though it was a novel, she just thought, it's not going to be the one. So she had written a personal essay about the writing of the book and had quoted George Eliot. And a line from the George Eliot poem was Narrow Girls on a blue profound stage. And that is the one that stuck and informed the imagery for her book cover. And it's just such a good lesson to allow the titles to transform for you, because you don't really need, you don't really need to have, there's no one right answer, there's no one right answer. Now, there are cliffhanger titles, which would be, hold on a sec. Here we go. Girl Left Behind by Judy Temis, right? Girl Left Behind, not naming who it is, but boy, we know at least something that happens, and then we're wondering what happens next. So and this image of her as a 4 or 5-year-old girl being left behind, if any of you has watched, we will make sure that we reshare our interview with Judy Temis on her book launch. This book is an incredible memoir of her having been left behind by her family in totalitarian Hungary because they needed to escape the government, and the only way they could get visas to escape the country was to leave one family member behind. And the government thought that they would come back. And of course they didn't. And you can find out what happens. There are also lyrical and atmospheric titles like All the Leavings by Laurie Easter. This is a memoir and essays. And it really does draw on all the ways that people depart our lives or come through our lives and, take a turn. And so All the Leavings, it's not sad, but it is this image of this sort of duck, sort of like taking off into flight. What does that mean? Or is it landing? You don't know. Right? Now, what Lisa Selye has said is that what she drew inspiration from was boiling down your book's theme to one word. She credits George Lucas, who said that every story can be boiled down to one word. Her word for her book, when she did this was Obsession, but she didn't name her book Obsession. She could have, but boy, that comes up when she's explaining what her book is about, her log line. So her log line might be Narrow Girls on a Blue Profound Stage is about obsession in a young heart and being a teen in an adult environment and the predatory nature of young adults. Or I'm filling in the blank because I'm not, she's not here with us, but boiling down the words, and for me, I always tell people choose 3 words and make sure they're not the same. If she said obsession and passion, I would say, well, okay, choose one. But she didn't. She said it's obsession, and it's also about immersion in a world and total commitment to an art form. She and I have been texting a bunch this week. So, but I always say boil down to 3. Now, what I've been seeing lately with titles too are song lyrics that are not song titles. So you don't want a song title, but here's one that I thought was genius. Lauren Weisberger, Where the Grass is Green and the Girls Are Pretty. As soon as you read that, you're, unless you were raised, in an Amish country, you're thinking, I know where that came from. Thank you, Aerosmith. That's Aerosmith, right? Yeah, I think it is. Okay, so that's a good one. There are others. There are some, others that have been coming up from that I've been noticing from Rick Astley. There are a lot of young adult titles thrillers that lean heavily on song lyrics of yesteryear, and they do that because it's a nice reminder of like, oh, I really liked that. Like Never Gonna Give You Up. That I couldn't find the book, but that's a Rick Astley song, right?
Allison,
I'll Let You Down.
Allison, may I share one that fits several of these categories?
Yeah.
This book is called Will You Miss Me When I'm Gone? And it's about the Carter family that started in the 1930s. And the subtitle is Their Legacy in American Music. So it has that open-ended question, but then it also tells who they are and to kind of answer the question. And the Will You Miss Me When I'm Gone? Well, they're not performing anymore. And they did have issues. They had problems in their relationship. So that title has multiple meanings.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent title for that book.
Yeah, it sure is. And a good song. Yeah. I mean, it conjures so much feeling. Now, there are books that really let you know what they're going to be about. And when we're talking about some of those, so this is Blow Your House Down, by Gina Frangello. It's a story of family feminism and treason. And look at that image, right? Blow Your House Down. So it conjures this, a fairy tale. It's not, this children's story of this wolf, but boy, it's scary, right? Sorry, I can hear somebody speaking. So. Aw, who's got a baby? I heard, hi baby, whoever you are. And there are other ones. If anybody's read this, The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. Great, we know exactly who's in it, but why is the creek called troublesome? I can't wait to find out. Now, for those of us who are writing self-help or narrative nonfiction, there are books like The Invisible Kingdom, Reimagining Chronic Illness. So a sort of a mic drop title, but the subtitle does the heavy lifting to tell you what you get. Okay, we're going to reimagine chronic illness. But this, in the same way, could be, let me put some of these down. Oh, I'm surrounded by books. So these books are about something, but they're not telling you what to do with it, right? And that the body keeps the score, brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. It doesn't say how you can, it is literally about. #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction, again, for like the 166th week. Congratulations to Dr. Vanderkolk. And then there are books that tell us what we can do with the details, right? So there's this one, The Kitchen Whisperers. That could be anything. Please use your subtitle very wisely. Cooking with the Wisdom of Our Friends. So this would be a really good inspiration for Debbie Lewis, who wrote Kitchen Medicine, because there's cooking with your friends, and then there's cooking for, her book is called Kitchen Medicine, how she used food to heal her daughter from chronic illness. But you could take the chronic illness book and this book, and then you get an idea, not just for what her book became, but how she might go about creating a panel about how food is healing in a lot of ways, right? And pitch an event somewhere, or at next year's writers conference. Debbie, you can do that, and you can thank me later. Now, when we're talking about chronic illness, we talked about The Invisible Kingdom, and then here's another book on the same topic: Why We Get Sick. No subtitle. It might be at the top. It's not really a subtitle, but it's The Root of Most Illnesses and How We Fight Them. Like, okay, but it still doesn't tell you what to do. When we talk about solving a problem, like in self-help, it's more than about something. It is how to build a plan, or a guide to XYZ. So let's take a look at this one. This is in Shapiro book, The Book Bible, right? How to sell your manuscript no matter what genre without going broke or insane. So this is a real how-to, and she plays on this shock of the Bible and really delivers a method. So you can use that formula, and this is a great seller, and it's a great book. I also wanted to pull out some books that are new nonfiction out from my local library. This one is called Pipe Dreams, and this is hilarious. The Urgent Global Quest to Transform the Toilet. I never would have thought, but maybe we do need this. And it's just clever, and it does what it doesn't do. It's here's the infrastructure of piping today, but it sets it up. And then this one is a narrative nonfiction. It's called The Sound of the Sea, Seashells and the Fate of the Oceans. Now, what it's about is not the actual seashells. It's not about seashells. It is about how shells can tell you the history of what has happened in a place. And that would be this book would be particularly a really good inspiration for one of the writers in our group, Brian Halloway, who is a shelling expert. And so what he does is he writes about the stories that come from his business, taking people on shell tours in Captiva and Sanibel Island. And he has written for articles about his experiences of taking people on these very healing journeys, but as in a different way. He's not relating it to the fate of the oceans. He might be relating it to the fate of someone's soul. So you can develop that as well to get inspired by something that you see and then twist it so that the subtitle actually delivers. Let me stop and see if we have any questions so far. We're about halfway through, so I want to just see if anyone has any questions about their own title, because no matter what you think, like, oh, I don't want to share my title, like, you might as well share it. Or post it in the creative nonfiction community and see, do people really get what we're talking about? So if you want input or have a question now, for sure, share that. Or, you can talk about titles that you've loved because, and why you picked them up. Deb, you see a lot of titles. You see a lot of ho-hum titles too, I bet.
Well, I'll share my title.
Okay, great.
Okay, so my book is called Eggshells. The title is Eggshells.
You have a log line you want to share?
I'm not that prepared. Wait, you know what? I'm going to open my query. I'll read it.
Okay. I know we worked on your log line. So
Yeah, no, this is the query that I have been sending out. Okay. Wait a minute. I'm also making my, I guess, lunch now. So, okay. My novel explores the secretive and destructive nature of emotional abuse, finding power in vulnerability, and ultimately how, with one good friend and a steady supply of cheese, healing is possible. So that kind of gives you an idea. There's not a lot of plot, it's not specific, but that's the sort of the high level.
Right. Yeah. Friends and cheese. Yeah. But right. So the thing is, when you're developing these titles, you think like, well, I love this title, but how is it going to work? How is it going to work with the artwork that draws people in? It's not, it may not be just one like blank, yellow background. It might, depending on the genre, it might.
Well, the genre doesn't make a difference. It's fiction, it's upmarket fiction. And I'm just curious what comes to mind when people hear the word, because I have asked people and I'm generally getting the responses that I want. But if anybody wants to chime in and tell me, what they think of when they hear that word. No one?
Tamara says cooking and baking. Shelley says friends and cheese and eggs. Diane says walking on eggshells, or Easter. Tamara says Easter.
Mm-hmm. So that's, the walking on eggshells is the primary. It is about abuse, emotional abuse, having to walk on eggshells around, in this case, her husband, but it's also about cooking too. So, I was listening to you talking about how the longer titles, and yeah, one of my comps is, one of those long titles. But I don't know, for right now, I feel like it's kind of giving me what I want for that title. So what do you think, Allison?
Well, I love it.
Okay.
I love it. And I think what you're going to end up with is, because it's, women's fiction or, upmarket fiction, I think you're going to end up with some sort of, not subtitle, but like little phrase on the cover that
Mhm.
says, you know, two friends can solve anything over a plate of cheese or something like that, you know, or, you know, in the kitchen. So that and you're going to end up with some sort of imagery, you know, whether it's like this is, we can be heroes, and you see these, like,
You
we
know,
can
it's
be
funny.
heroes, could have been anything.
Yeah, I've written a couple of novels. None of them have been published, but you know, it takes a long time to really learn how to write a book. And I've always really loved my titles. I wrote a book called A Touch of Power about what was he? He was like a healing con man. That was a good one. That one didn't go either. But eggshells came to me when I first had the idea of the book. It's like eggshells, and it was my working title for a really long time, and I never expected to keep it, but I couldn't. It was just so. So that's good to hear. It's nice to. I'm going to put that in the win category since I'm not getting any of them with my queries.
And I like it, Deborah. I totally got the walking on eggshells, and then as soon as you talked about cooking, what a great tie-in! What a great through line. Yeah,
Right.
I like it.
So Brad Borkin asks, is there an agency that helps develop titles for books? Yes, you can. There is an agency that does that, but I can tell you that you can, you know, if you're going to self-publish, it might be worth, you know, going through a process like that. But most of the time, just like you can get critiques from critique partners, and you can improve your writing through a community like this, like the creative nonfiction community or the Manuscript Academy, which is paid, but still super worth it. You know, book titles is when I'm working with someone, we take 30 minutes and we, you know, brainstorm. I was just working with someone yesterday, redoing her title, and we just brainstormed into a document. Like, let's name all the things it could be. And then we hit on one and we were like, oh, wow, that's it. That's it. It has to be that one. Okay, now let's pull the rest of the, you know, the key phrases and make a really, really provocative, scary, you know, what's the risk subtitle. And then how can we make it shorter and shorter and shorter so that it tells you what's this about, who's it for, what happens if they don't read it, and who's the bad guy. I work with a lot of, you know, business, self-help, narrative nonfiction, and memoirs. So that sort of it can be fast. And if you're going to go the traditional publishing route, you probably will need an agent, unless you're going to, like Candace, submit directly to a small publisher. You're going to need an agent, and they just need to be able to get it right away. Even if it's eggshells, this book is about X, Y, and Z. Great, just make that really short. And you can workshop your logline, your title in this group. Just post what it's about and ask for input as an original post in the creative nonfiction community Facebook thread, and you will get input on the same day.
Great, thanks. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, other questions. Somebody had more questions. Nikki says, storyteller is about my life as an economist. Oh, cool. Nikki, do you have a subtitle? Oh, you're on mute. Hold on, let me ask you to unmute.
Okay, sorry. What do I say? It's about stories from my life teaching economics, the stories about the students, the stories about the faculty I worked with, how I learned to do this, and move from, you know, a sample of one to a sample of many. Kind of thinking. So it's the first draft is written, but then it kind of stalled. But I've stuck with my working title. A lot of people are going, storyteller. Oh, we expect something like a fantasy novel. so,
Oh, okay.
so
So
I've kind of stuck-
is it short stories or profiles, or is it a self-help, like how you too can?
well, at the moment, it's more like that book you talked about where it's a memoir and essays.
Mhm.
Here's the biography of my mentor, for instance, who's
Oh, okay.
was so very different from me, that kind of thing. So
Got it.
that kind of, that's where I'm leaning. But a lot of people have suggested, and I'm also, and I won't take up too much time, working on a little book about learning macro for adults, which is, you know, these days with inflation and issues of GDP and that kind of stuff, is more important than ever. Everybody's saying, well, start your little blurb about, say, inflation with this bit about how your dad eats the same food every day. So you start everything with a story. So that's
Right.
also in the works.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're kind of
Starting with an anecdote or story really gets people into whatever advice you're about to give them. I think storyteller is an interesting title for a book about your work as an economist. I think that I would encourage you to make a really long list. You take 15 minutes and write a list of just one words, like like word return, listing all the words that relate to being an economist. Money, inflation, moneymaker, banker. If there's any kind of saying,
oh, there's lots.
maker, candlestick maker, yeah, all of that, because your title can really sum that up, but it's probably not just, the money keeper.
No, it's not about that at
Right.
all.
Right. It's like it could really be revealing to you, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Carol says, I've changed my title and log line while you've been talking. Could I share mine? Sure.
Okay. My new title is My Mother's Not Hopeless. And the log line is a memoir about a schizophrenic mother who loved and survived. And
Okay.
and I don't know if I loved and survived tragedy or just who loved and survived.
So sorry, I'm looking at the title. So hopeless. So I would look at that and create a bunch of words around that, like maybe because if you're thinking about memoir, you
Right.
want your book to invite people in, and they don't want to read about your mom. They don't know your mom, but they do want to read about themselves through reading your mom's story, right? So your title might be Not Hopeless.
Oh, okay.
Or Still Hopeful.
Okay.
And then your subtitle might still not be The Story About My Mom. It might be surviving a childhood with a parent, a schizophrenic parent.
Okay. Although, yeah, the thing though is what my original title was called My Loving Schizophrenic Mother, and this Not Hopeless is actually my reaction to her psychiatrist in a state mental hospital said, I'm sorry, but Arlene is hopeless. She's never going to be released. I said, no, my mother's not hopeless. I mean, I had like this violent reaction because I knew he was wrong.
Yeah. Well, that at least, that, and I would look at the other books about mental illness and about memoir about, there's one that one of my clients used as a comp once. It was like, bird in a cage or bird on a wire, bird on a, I'll think of it and I will post it when I think of it. But it didn't have a subtitle, but it was about a man who had a schizophrenic break while on a, I don't know, he might have been like a newlywed, 28 years old, while he was on a New York City subway platform.
Mm-hmm.
And he wandered around New York naked for a day, and before they realized what had happened.
Right.
And the storytelling was incredible. I mean, it was like a novel, but boy, and the title was also like a novel. So I would encourage you to think about how your title does not have to be prescriptive. The story about my reaction to my mom having, being schizophrenic or having schizophrenia, it's not hopeless, kind of sums that up. Mona, you were about to say something because I saw you nodding, or maybe it was Candace.
What was the subtitle again, Carol?
Well, the logline subtitle, remember, a schizophrenic mother who loved and survived.
I like the loved and survived.
tragedies.
I like the loved and survived part, but I like the not hopeless as a simple title. But I don't, does schizophrenia need to be in the subtitle, Allison? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Well, that's,
because it will be in the log line.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's what it's about. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the whole idea that most of the stories about schizophrenic parents are about abuse and neglect, but my mother was not only loving, but she survived incredible tragedies and still could love.
then maybe it should be the subtitle should be how you experienced that instead of how she treated you, your experience.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Even though the book is about your experience, the subtitle does not need to say that. The subtitle could just be, riding schizophrenia, or the ups and downs of life, or
Love from a schizophrenic parent.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Who also
Yeah.
who survived all this tragedy. She was still able to love,
Yeah,
be a good mother.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother wasn't schizophrenic, but I experienced many of the same kind of stuff. So love from that kind of parent is sometimes hard to get across.
and you want people to read that. I mean, the number 2 bestseller in nonfiction right now is something Kingdom, Fractured Kingdom. Help me, Candace.
yeah, I think that's what it's called, Fractured Kingdom. That sounds right.
It's not right. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my to read list. But it doesn't say, my life with leukemia, adult leukemia. It's a memoir. So you'll look it up and you'll tell me. So you don't, what I'm saying is you don't need to be that literal. Your title doesn't need to say my life with my mom who was still nice to me, even though she had schizophrenia. I mean, I'm
Right. No, I understand.
dumbing it down. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to get to somebody else. Somebody else posted, a couple other people posted. So Tamara says, my title is Child Bride. Holy crap, Tamara. It's about her child marriage at 12. Holy crap.
Wow.
Yeah. So hello, Tamara. So yeah, I think that's fine. That one, that has shock value, and and you might not need a subtitle. You'll need a log line. The in one breath, your book in a breath. Child Bride could be about anything, and we need to know what it's about. The enduring tradition, and how to break free, or however you position it. How do you position it now?
Um, so I have a subtitle and it's My Islamic Temporary Marriage. But a temporary marriage is something that people don't really, it's a concept that's not widely known at all. So I don't know if I should take that out because it's kind of confusing. So
I feel like I just read about someone's, did you read this? That you were, yeah, you wrote that crazy, awesome article about that. That, first of all, that was so good.
thank you.
That was so good. I was going to say, oh, you should really talk to that woman, but that's you, so you should talk to yourself. I think that you don't need to say well, first of all, I would come up with like 5 or 6 titles that you like and 5 or 6 subtitles, and you should work them and workshop them because you could do a lot with that. But child bride, and yes, I like your subtitle, but I think also it's not just your story, it's that this exists. That this is totally, how, and you could go a lot of ways. You could go the narrative nonfiction way to say, the, enduring ritual of temporary Islamic marriages and how I, and how to avoid it and how to escape it and how, and, the other secrets, or, just to give a cliffhanger, because it's not just about you, it's about it, right? Yeah.
And I also put the religion in there, which I'm a little bit, it's because it is different than Christian fundamentalism. Like I wanted to kind of distinguish it from like what other child brides are, like in America that like people generally are more familiar with.
Well, but is that, I mean, maybe you should, I don't know exactly what the contents of your book are, but if you talk about any of the other ones, like how this is different, then maybe your subtitle can hint to that, the, enduring ritual of temporary marriages in Christianity, in, I don't know, however many more, and how I survived mine. 12 years old. Oh, gosh. So we experience a lot of shit. I mean, the stuff that we don't talk about, I'm so glad we talk about here. And I really love it, Tamara. I don't think you should change it for now, but once you're ready to talk about if you're going to self-publish or develop your, back cover copy with us, or want to talk about your log line or how to pitch agents, you should, let us support you because we're all about it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let's see. Maximilian Maslov says The Fractured Wall, KGB, suicide, abduction, and mafia. Maximilian, hi.
Hi.
You are the cousin of Angela, correct?
Yes, I am. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Maximilian. So you wrote a book about being abducted as a child by the KGB. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I think that your subtitle does not tell us what happens enough. But then again, I don't know if you're writing a memoir, if it's going to read like a thriller, or if it's going to be narrative nonfiction, like a history of the KGB and abduction, or what?
I tried to make it a thriller, so it just kind of keeps moving throughout the book really easily. Yeah, and it's it starts off. My old title was I Don't Remember Being Abducted.
But I think that your subtitle can work harder for you. But like we talked about with Carol, you can make that, and with Tamara, you can point to the fact that this wasn't just happening to you. I mean, if abduction was part of the KGB methodology, you can hint to that. But there's so many ways to pitch a book. There's so many ways to position a book that you can't really go wrong. There's only, and all of this is subjective. We just want your book title to like flag to the world, what do I get when I get this? Because that's the thing that we're going to see, the cover. So what is it? And if it's something, mysterious, then that's kind of good for like a sci-fi or a dystopian thriller, or literary fiction. But we don't want to be mysterious with nonfiction. We want to know what it is. And sometimes the imagery can, pull its weight, 60% of the weight. But right now, all we have are the words. So I think there's more work to do there, but you have the ingredients for sure. Before we go, oh gosh, Mona, she says, Maximilian, I love the title. And Carol says, what about Unearthing Secrets? So, right, if you have a title or 3 titles that you're wondering about, anyone, post them in the creative nonfiction community and first of all, tell us what your book is about, because otherwise we can't help. Tell us, is it a narrative? Is it a story of me? So that would be your log line and maybe your plot. And if you don't know what a logline is or how to tell the premise from the plot, I've done workshops on that. They all live on the YouTube channel under Allison Lane Literary. They're all free. They're right there. If you haven't subscribed, you should. Make sure you're subscribed to the creative nonfiction community, and you will get replays and replays of all of these and reminders for the next one, which is in 2 weeks. On my birthday, May 4th, we're having a compassionate critique session where you bring a page or a problem or a priority. We break into groups, and writers who care about you and your work help you figure it out. So if everybody can take themselves off, come back and let us see your faces so we can say goodbye, and make sure you come back and ask any questions that you need in the community. We'll repost the replay on Friday. And there's Brad and a bunch of other people who, some of whom I know. There's Nikki and Shelly. But thank you for being here, and keep in mind that we're here. You have to ask for what you need, and of course, share what you know. Be a good egg in the community, and you get back a ton. Keep a lookout for the reminders for our next slew of workshops and freebies and cheat sheets, and Mona and Candace and I will remind you where they are if you are new to the community and you have not come across some of these yet. We keep handing them out like goodies. All right. All right. Have a great day. Thanks for showing up.